Hello everyone. Rishikesh is Singh this side, and today I'll be presenting my environmental science case study on recurring floods in Bihar, causes, environmental impacts, and sustainable solutions. Flooding is one of the most frequent natural disasters in India, and Bihar experiences severe floods every year. This year, Punjab and Haryana, and also Uttarakhand were severely affected, but Bihar is affected by it every year. And what causes these floods? Their environmental and social impacts, and some sustainable solutions that can help reduce future damage. So, why Bihar? To begin, let us understand why Bihar is often called India's most flood prone state. A flood occurs when water overflows onto land that is normally dry. Bihar receives around 1200 millimeters of rainfall annually, mainly during the monsoon season. More than 76% of Bihar geographical area is flooded prone, and around 19 districts face recurring floods every year. Uh, Also, there is Triple IT Bhagalpur, which is there in Bihar, which generally stays closed for a month or two just cause of flooding every year. So, a flood occurs when water flows and receives around 1200 millimeters of rainfall every year in the upper parts, also mainly the major red parts over in this photo. So, because of this recurring nature and large scale impact, Bihar provides an important case study for understanding flood management. Bihar's rivers and recurring flood history. Bihar is located in the fertile Gangetic plains and is crossed by several major rivers such as Kosi, Gandak, Bagmati, and Ganga. Most of these rivers in the Himalayas and carry huge amounts of water and sediments into Bihar. During the monsoon season from June to September, heavy rainfall increases river discharge and often causes rivers to overflow. Historically, Bihar has experienced many severe floods. The first major Kosi flood was recorded in 1954. In 2008, a catastrophic breach in the Kosi embankment displaced around 3 million people. Between 2016 and 2019, Bihar experienced consecutive severe flood seasons, and in 2022, widespread flooding. So, problem identification is, let us look at the scale of problem. About 76% of Bihar's area is vulnerable to flooding. Approximately 19 districts are chronically affected every year. Major flood events have displaced more than 3 million people, and the average annual economic loss is estimated around 2,000 crore every year. Around 2,000 crore of the government's budget is just flooded. Beyond numbers, flood destroys houses, roads, schools, hospitals, and agricultural land. This affects people's livelihoods, access to education, healthcare services, and overall quality of life. Therefore, flooding is not only an environmental issue but also a major development challenge. So, what drives Bihar's recurring floods? The causes of Bihar's flood can be divided into natural and human-made factors. First, natural causes include heavy monsoon rainfall and Himalayan snowmelt, which significantly increases river water levels. Second, river dynamics play an important role. The Kosi River carries one of the most highest sediment loads in the world. Over time, these sediments raises the riverbed, making overflow more likely. Human activities also worsen the situation. Deforestation, floodplain encroachment, and poorly maintained embankments reduce the land's ability to absorb excess water. Finally, climate change is increasing rainfall intensity and the frequency of extreme weather events, making floods more severe than before. These factors work together and increase Bihar's vulnerability. Okay, so floods have significant impact on the environment. One major impact is soil erosion. Soil erosion is not just one measure, but the most high major impact on the environment. Floodwater washes away fertile topsoil, reducing agricultural activity. Another impact is water pollution. During floods, sewage, industrial waste, and other contaminants mixed with water sources, making them unsafe for drinking. Food floods also lead to biodiversity loss. Wetlands and forest habitats can be damaged, forcing wildlife to migrate or perish. Repeated flooding further causes land degradation, reducing soil fertility and threatening long-term food security. So, human cost of Bihar floods, the social and economic consequences are equally serious. Every year, millions of peoples are displaced and forced to live in temporary relief camps. Farmers suffer large losses due to damaged crops and destroyed farmlands. Floods conditions often lead to outbreaks of diseases such as cholera, typhoid, and diarrhea because of contaminated water. The economic losses can exceed 2,000 crore during major flood events like the one in 2002 and many more. Education is also affected because schools are often damaged. One common example is Triple IT Bhagalpur, which generally stays closed for 2 months due to flooding. As a result, created long-term challenges for communities and slow down regional development. And the sorrow of Bihar, the Kosi River. The Kosi River is often called the Sorrow of Bihar. It is considered the most destructive river in the state because it carries an extremely high sediment load and frequently changes its course. The most famous example is occurred in 2008 when an embankment breach near Kosaha in Nepal caused one of the worst floods in Bihar's history. More than 3 million people were displaced, over 250 people lost their lives. The problem continues because sediments accumulation raises the riverbed around surrounding land, while embankments trap even more sediments. As a result, communities across several districts repeatedly face loss of homes, farmland, and livelihoods. This case highlights the limitations of relying only on embankments for flood control. So, why traditional approaches are falling short? First, embankments alone are not in a complete solution because they trap sediments and can increase long-term flood risk. Second, human activities such as deforestation and encroachment significantly increases vulnerability. Third, environmental degradation and flooding creates a vicious cycle. More degradation leads to worse floods, and flood causes further environmental damage. Climate change is making rainfall patterns less predictable, which means historically data alone is no longer sufficient for planning. Therefore, integrated watershed management is more effective than relying on isolated flood control structures. And finally, the key solutions and key takeaways. To conclude, recurring floods in Bihar result from a combination of natural processes and human activities. Some sustainable solutions include afforestation and watershed management, improved drainage system, better flood forecasting and early warning systems, sustainable land use planning, use of GIS and remote sensing technologies, community awareness and disaster preparedness programs. The key takeaway is that flood management should focus on prevention and long-term sustainability rather than only the post-disaster relief. By combining technology, environmental conservation, and community participation, Bihar can significantly reduce the vulnerability in the future. Well, thank you for listening. I'd be happy to answer any question in the comments further on. Thank you.